Listen up. This is my theory on why the United States, when it comes to Western lifestyle, has seen a high increase of chronic diseases as well as autoimmune diseases. Within the past century, when we put attention onto the prior generations going back to 1920s, the silent generation, to now, Gen Alpha, we have experienced a multitude of trauma when it pertains to psychological trauma as well as physical trauma. It could be any form of trauma. When we experience trauma, we go through the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, or freeze, as well as the rest and digest. We have our neurotransmitters and everything cycling through our entire body and wondering, how are we going to fight this? When our body finally goes through that entire cycle of the sympathetic nervous system, now we get to the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's basically rest and digest. What that body does is helps to maneuvering around it the next time. That is what DHEA is for. Put this little note into your mind saying, okay, this is how we're gonna work it next time. And when we experience the rest and digest, not only our body, but mostly pertaining to our gut health. When we experience the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, not only is our neurotransmitters coming from our gastrointestinal tract going towards our brain to help us process this emotion, to process this experience, we also start seeing an imbalance of our microbiome as well as a high increase of radical damage. And when we need to lower that, we need to start learning how to heal, start learning how to maneuver, start learning how to grow and take back our power, because when we exacerbated our power to an individual or to an environment, we are now giving its power back to them, and we want the power. We want to be able to say, hey, I'm not going to experience this form of trauma. I'm not going to let my body go through that cycle of not knowing what to do. This is how I'm going to do it next time. So when we experience all that, now this is dipping into epigenetics, which is basically also putting a note onto your DNA strand to block out, negate whatever that DNA strand is for, but it's not changing the sequence itself. So when it comes to epigenetics, let's say a woman who is either pregnant or even the male themselves, when they experience a form of trauma, our body now is going through the stressor, and now that is going to be placed on our gene, our DNA strand. And then what that does, it dips over into the next generation if you don't know how to heal from it, how to grow from it. So when someone tells you, hey, don't express this emotion, don't talk about your trauma, they are incorrect. They are rude, they're ruthless. We need to understand that silence equals death. We need to understand that to overcome silence, we have to shame, become resilient towards fear by allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. When we experience this dip into the next generation, that child now has to learn that lesson themselves, because now when they experience that form of trauma that's unhealed, they're going to go through that entire similar physiological effects on how our body responds to that type of trauma event. So when we discuss chronic diseases, now we understand that trauma itself puts a damper on our body, both psychologically and physiologically. Therefore, when it comes to treating our body like a garden, the United States has this adaptive idea of Western lifestyle, which pertains to this realm of big pharma, this realm of not getting pure, whole, nutrient-dense foods, right? Because back in the World War II, we saw scarcity when it pertains to food shortages. Therefore, we as a society probably freaked out. We having the unknown and fear deep in our mind of, hey, I'm not going to have food. What are we going to do this? The farmlands were being wiped out, especially in the Midwest during the Dust Bowl, all right? When the country was figuring out and doing their own research and education pertaining to what we as our own body should be getting and receiving from nutrients, what they do to whole nutrient-dense foods is they take it. Now they have this luscious, fruitfulness food that's whole, that's raw, as well as being full of enzymes and probiotics. Now they are trying to do testing on them. They're taking out its nutrients. Now they're putting these factory-made synthetic nutrients in there to have a longevity on the shelf. When we go to a store, we have figured out that when we shop within the aisles, those are synthetic foods, those are fake foods, those are processed foods. That's why we are called processed foods of America, all right? Therefore, when we go grocery shopping, let's shop around the perimeters. Let's make some smart choices and actually give ourselves the nutrients that we need. Because when we ingest these processed foods, now we are lacking in those nutrients. Now we are lacking in healthy, good bacteria, good fats, good protein, everything that's supposed to keep our body moving. When we experience this form of processed foods, which is full of processed sugars, high amount of sugars, those sugars will then be stored as fat, those excess amount of sugars, because we, as processed foods of America, have a high consumption of carbohydrates. When we experience an unhealed part of trauma, going back to epigenetics and autoimmune diseases, it actually is research developing within the last few years that actually proves that trauma has an increase of autoimmune diseases. So I invite you all to listen to your body, listen to what your gut's telling you. I'm going to learn how to take care of myself. I'm going to give myself permission to not only heal myself, but also heal the next generations after me. Because it's not just you in play. I invite you all to go seek out a therapist, go seek out a psychologist, even go seek out a holistic health and wellness coach like me. My name is Michael Maddox. I'm your holistic health and wellness coach, and I invite you all to check out my new rebranded website, nurturingrootscoaching.com, to start your new journey today and schedule an appointment for a new client consultation, or if you're a previous client, continue to schedule an appointment, either 30-minute, 60-minute, or 90-minute. Thank you all and have a fantastic day.